Entry 1, The Discovery. I've never been one for superstitions. Ghosts, curses, haunted objects. Those were just stories to keep children in line and amuse the easily frightened. So when I stumbled upon the antique shop during my weekend trip to the secluded village of Ravenswood, the last thing I expected was to find something that would shake my skepticism to its core. The shop was a cluttered maze of relics from bygone eras. Dust motes danced in the slivers of sunlight that managed to penetrate the grimy windows. An old man with a weathered face sat behind the counter, his eyes following me as I perused the collection of odds and ends. That's when I saw it, the black mirror. It was tucked away in a dark corner, leaning against a stack of worn books. The frame was ornate, almost gothic in its design, and the glass was pitch black, reflecting nothing. Intrigued, I picked it up and brought it to the counter. "Curious piece," I said, expecting a sales pitch. The old man's expression darkened.
"You don't want that,"
he replied in a gravelly voice.
"It's cursed. They say it reveals a person's darkest desires."
I chuckled. "I think I can handle it. How much?" He sighed, shaking his head, but named a price. As I handed over the money, he muttered,
"You've been warned."
Journal entry 2, The Unveiling. Back in my apartment, I hung the mirror in my study. I didn't expect much, maybe a creepy decoration to amuse my friends. But as the days passed, I found myself drawn to it. At first, it seemed like any other mirror, albeit one that showed only an inky void. But then, the visions began. It started subtly, a flicker in the corner of my eye, a shadow that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at it. Soon, the shadows took shape. Faces from my past, twisted and contorted, began to appear. My ex-girlfriend, Sarah, her face a mask of betrayal. My father, eyes full of disappointment. A childhood bully, sneering. But it wasn't just faces. I saw scenes, moments I had tried to forget. The time I stole money from my mother's purse. The night I got drunk and crashed my car, lying to the police about how much I had been drinking. The cruel words I'd hurled at Sarah in our last fight. The mirror showed them all, replaying my worst impulses and repressed memories. Journal entry 3, The Descent. The visions grew more frequent and intense, invading my dreams. Sleep became a torment as the mirror's influence seeped into my subconscious. I found myself waking in cold sweats, heart pounding, images of my darkest deeds flashing before my eyes. Every night, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred further. I tried everything to escape the mirror's grasp. I draped it in thick blankets, hoping to smother its malevolent presence. For a time, I moved it to the closet, shoving it behind boxes and old clothes. But it was no use. The mirror had its hooks in me, and it wasn't letting go. I started to lose time. Hours would vanish like smoke, slipping through my fingers. I'd come to, disoriented, standing in front of the mirror, its black surface reflecting back a version of myself I barely recognized. My reflection would whisper dark thoughts, insidious suggestions that wormed their way into my mind. "Remember how he humiliated you," it would say, bringing up memories of my old boss. "Wouldn't it feel good to make him pay?" At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was stress, that I was overworked, that I needed to get a grip. But the whispers grew louder, more persistent. They spoke of desires I didn't want to acknowledge, violent, selfish urges that I kept buried deep within. The mirror showed me a version of myself that was capable of terrible things. One evening I caught myself in the kitchen, clutching a heavy carving knife, staring out the window at my neighbor's house. Mrs. Larson, an elderly woman who lived alone, was puttering about in her garden. The whisper came again, this time louder, more insistent. She's all alone. No one would ever know. I dropped the knife with a clatter, horrified. Was I really considering it? The thought sickened me, but part of me, a small, dark part, was intrigued by the power it promised. Then came the night that shattered any illusions I had about resisting the mirror. I awoke to find myself holding a knife, standing over my neighbor's dog. The poor creature looked up at me with trusting eyes, oblivious to the danger. I had always liked the dog, an old, friendly Labrador named Max. He wagged his tail, clearly expecting a treat or a pat on the head. But the knife in my hand was real, cold and heavy. I could feel its weight, the sharpness of the blade, ready to plunge into Max's unsuspecting form. My reflection in the window showed a twisted smile on my face, a look of satisfaction and cruel intent. Time seemed to stand still. My mind screamed at me to stop, to drop the knife and run, but my body felt paralyzed, controlled by some dark force. The whispering grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. Do it. Embrace who you really are. With a Herculean effort, I broke free. I dropped the knife and stumbled back, horrified. Max whined softly, sensing my distress, but unaware of the danger he had just been in. My heart raced, my breathing ragged as I collapsed onto the floor, shaking. The mirror's reflection showed that same twisted smile, a look of triumph. I knew then that the mirror was winning, that its influence was growing stronger with each passing day. I had to find a way to break the curse before it drove me to commit unspeakable acts. But as the days turned into nights and the nights into days, the lines between myself and my reflection blurred further. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and I felt myself slipping away, piece by piece. Desperation clawed at my mind. How long could I resist before the mirror claimed me entirely? I didn't know, but one thing was certain. I was running out of time. Journal entry 4. The confrontation. I couldn't go on like this. I had to break the curse, whatever it took. The weight of the mirror's influence was crushing, suffocating, and I felt my sanity slipping away. I spent hours hunched over my computer, researching ancient rituals and folklore, desperate for a solution. I scoured obscure forums, consulted dusty old tomes, and even reached out to self-proclaimed experts in the occult. Nothing was too outlandish, too bizarre if it promised even a glimmer of hope. Every night, I tried something new. I burned sage until my apartment reeked of its pungent scent, the smoke curling around me like a protective shroud. I chanted incantations in forgotten languages, the words foreign and harsh on my tongue. I sprinkled salt around the mirror, creating a circle of supposed protection. But nothing worked. The mirror remained, an unyielding sentinel of my darkest fears. Each failure chipped away at my resolve, but I couldn't stop. I was driven by a primal need to rid myself of this cursed object. The mirror's whispers grew louder, more incessant, taunting me with my failures. My reflection mocked me, a twisted grin playing across its lips as I fumbled through one ritual after another. Then, one night, as I sat in my dimly lit study, the air thick with the smell of burnt sage and desperation, the mirror spoke to me. Not in my voice, but in a low, malevolent whisper that seemed to resonate from the depths of its dark surface. "You can't get rid of me, Daniel. I am you." The words sent a chill down my spine. The malevolence in that voice was palpable, a tangible force that wrapped itself around my heart and squeezed. I felt a surge of anger, a hot, searing rage that bubbled up from within. I couldn't take it anymore. The mirror had tormented me for too long, its grip tightening with each passing day. I snapped. With a roar of frustration, I grabbed the mirror, my fingers digging into the cold, smooth frame. I hurled it to the ground with all my strength, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The sound of shattering glass filled the room, each piece splintering into 1,000 fragments. I stared down at the shards, each one reflecting a distorted, broken image of myself. For a moment I felt a surge of relief, a fleeting sense of victory. I had done it. I had broken the mirror. The curse was lifted, and I was free. But then, the relief gave way to horror as I watched the pieces begin to move. Slowly, impossibly, the shards of glass started to inch towards each other, drawn together by some unseen force. They crawled across the floor like living things, reassembling themselves with a sickening, grinding noise. I watched in stunned silence as the mirror reformed itself, whole and unbroken. Its surface was darker than ever, an abyssal void that seemed to swallow the light around it. My reflection stared back at me, its eyes cold and empty. The twisted grin was gone, replaced by a look of calm, malevolent certainty. "You can't get rid of me," it whispered again, the voice echoing in my mind. "I am you." I sank to the floor, the weight of my despair crushing me. The mirror's grip was unbreakable, its curse inescapable. I realized then that this wasn't just an object of malevolence. It was a part of me, a dark mirror reflecting the deepest, most hidden aspects of my soul. The thought was too much to bear. I buried my face in my hands, tears streaming down my cheeks as the mirror's whispers surrounded me, a relentless chorus of darkness. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on, how much longer I could resist. The mirror was winning, and I was slipping away, piece by piece. Journal entry 5, The Unraveling. I don't know how much time has passed since then. Days, weeks, it's all a blur. The mirror's influence has only grown stronger. I'm losing myself, my grip on reality slipping. The visions are constant now, showing me acts of violence and depravity, urging me to give in to my darkest desires. I see myself hurting those I care about, Sarah, my parents, even strangers on the street. The mirror whispers that this is my true nature, that I am a monster pretending to be human. And sometimes I believe it. I've isolated myself, hoping to protect others from what I might become. But I can feel the mirror's pull, a relentless force drawing me back to its cursed surface. I don't know how much longer I can resist. Journal entry 6. The end. Tonight, I sit before the mirror, my reflection staring back at me with hollow eyes. I can hear the whispers growing louder, urging me to embrace my true self. I'm exhausted, my mind frayed. Part of me wants to give in, to end this torment. But another part of me clings to the hope that there's a way out, that I can break the mirror's hold on me. As I gaze into the inky depths, I wonder if there's still a chance for redemption, or if I'm already too far gone. The mirror remains silent, its dark surface revealing nothing. The answer, it seems, is mine to discover, or to create. I take a deep breath, my fingers tightening around the handle of the knife. The choice is mine.